Here in the States, we don't really care about the WBC. If Team USA wins this, nobody cares. It doesn't lead Sports Center. We don't spend hours here on CBS Sports Radio discussing it. It's not going to be all over your social media timeline. It's just not that big a thing. Winning the World Series is, winning the WBC is not. However, our American vantage point is not the same as other countries. And so the reason Puerto Rico was dancing up and down on the field yesterday was because defeating the Dominican Republic is an enormous deal for them. It's an enormous deal when it comes to cultural rivalries, national rivalries, family rivalries, regional rivalries, and pride of country, passion of country. And we can all get behind that. Because when it comes to the Olympics or anything else where it's USA, USA, we usually do get all hot and bothered. It's just that we don't care about the WBC in the U.S. as Americans. So I think it's important to be respectful of the fact that for many of these countries that compete, this is a huge deal, and you don't have to just eliminate the tournament just because we don't care and other countries do. Diaz going into that game said this feels like Game 7 of the World Series to us. So he's going all out. It does not feel like an exhibition game to him. And this injury is freakish. I mean, he didn't get injured playing. He gets injured celebrating. If they had lost that game, he's still healthy and ready for the Mets this season. But timing of the WBC, let's face it, is bizarre. Because as Darling said, if I was supposed to get meaningful outs in the middle of March, there's no way I could have done that. So you're asking these guys who have just 2 weeks of spring training under their belt to now rip it at 100%, to now go all out. And that doesn't seem smart. 2 weeks in, it's like imagine in mid-August the NFL played a playoff tournament. It's like, okay, you guys got to win this football game to clinch a playoff spot. Would those guys be ready to go 100% midway through August? It's what you're asking these guys to do. So that's a problem unto itself, and I saw 2 suggestions here yesterday. One, play the WBC in November after the season is done, so that if you do have an injury, like Freddie Freeman, like Edwin Diaz, you then have 6 months before you even have to worry about baseball again. If you play in November, get injured right after the season, November, December, January, February, March, April, you're talking about 5 or 6 months before the season is even really into gear to heal up. And if Edwin Diaz had this injury in November, he would be eligible to probably come back midway through the year. Or number 2, as Darling just said, maybe you can set aside 10 days around the All-Star break once every 4 years or 5 years, and then play it that way so that guys are in mid-season form. I feel like both of those suggestions are better than how they're playing it now. And I know that it's hard to get guys to commit to play baseball after a long and grueling baseball season. But when you see the passion and the pride of Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, Japan, etc., the countries where this really matters, those guys would want to play no matter what. I think, and I know that Major League Baseball owners want to see the game grown, and this is a good way to do it. And so they're caught between a rock and a hard place where they want to see these games matter, but they don't want their stars to get injured. It feels to me like the WBC doesn't have to be eliminated, but the timing has to be changed. Pete the Body was obviously upset yesterday, and rightfully so, about the Diaz injury. Pete the Body, would you be okay if the WBC happened at a different time of the year?
Yes.
Which do you think is better, in November after the season or mid-season, once every couple of years they set aside 10 days for it?
Well, I would say end of the season, but no one's going to play. So if you do it, once every 4 years in lieu of the All-Star break, make that the All-Star break, and you do maybe 2 weeks where there's some time for the players that are playing in the WBC to have some rest as well, I think it could work.
Pat Boyle, do you think it's a necessary change that they got to make? Because I wonder about an injury like this, which is a devastating injury. Before the Mets even play a game this year, their World Series chances just took a massive hit. I wonder about general managers wanting or allowing, or owners allowing, their stars and their all-stars to play in these games.
Yeah, I mean, something like that is, as much of a freak or fluke accident as it is, that makes you mindful now. If this, with the next WBC 4 years from now, if I'm a team and I have World Series aspirations or anything close to it, I'm not letting any of my star players go and play. I know just here in New York, the Yankees blocked, a couple of their pitchers, Luis Severino and a couple other pitchers, from even participating. So now when you see something like this happen to Edwin Diaz, that's going to make you more mindful in the future. And I do love the idea of having it in November as well, because everybody's just coming off this season. They're still fresh. As a pitcher, you toss another, maximum 10 innings, and shorten it up. I mean, we don't need 20 teams, right? As great as it is to have Nicaragua and Israel in there, we don't need you. We don't need you, right? Because at the end of the day, 99% of the time, you're not getting through. So shorten it up. Don't make it a 3-week extravaganza. Make it a week. Just start it off with 16 or 8 teams and just go right into knockout play. And make it a 1-week thing, and it makes it even more exciting, in my opinion.
Right. You can do this in 10 days if you lessen the pool of teams and then also just make it single elimination. There doesn't have to be pool play where you play a bunch of games. I don't know. We'll see what baseball does. Maybe there's going to be no reaction to this, but this one's a huge one, I think, for Major League Baseball, because, I mean, what does a tournament mean if general managers and owners are just like, you're not allowed to play in this? If everybody's not allowed to play in it that actually matters, then what is the tournament anyway?